are back in the smoke-filled room, and after several weeks of themed episodes, we had the convention, we had the end of session, we have like 3 weeks of political topics to cover. So this is going to be a packed episode. It's going to be a fun episode, I'm pretty sure, because we've got some juicy topics to cover. But let's get right into it. Let me introduce our guests for the week. We've got Aaron Del Mar. He's a member of the Republican State Central Committee, also is the Township Committeeman for Palatine Township and the Highway Commissioner, and a returning guest. Aaron, glad to have you.
Thanks for having me back, Collin. I appreciate your braveness.
Yeah, braveness. We're already creating words, and we're in minute 1 of the podcast. I like it. We have Katie Justak. She is the president of the Illinois Lincoln Series and has been involved with a number of things throughout the years. Katie, I'm glad to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
We also have Chris Provenzano. He's the chief of staff to Cook County Commissioner Sean Morrison. He's also the executive director of the Cook County Republican Party. Chris, glad to have you here, man.
Thanks for inviting me, and I'm happy to get out of the office and talk politics.
I like it. We also have Core's political experts, Michael and Chris. We didn't have them last week, so we're really pumped to have them back this week, and I'm sure they are. They've got multiple weeks of passion and analysis to let out in this episode.
Finally back. Glad to be back in civilization, Collin.
Oh, wow. All right. Well, we got plenty of things to say this week, that's for sure.
That is for sure. So let's get right into it. We haven't had a chance to talk about the convention since it happened. So our first couple topics are going to be related directly to the convention. First things first, if you have been paying attention at all, you know that there was a bit of drama down at the convention over the state central committee people races. So the committee woman race was between 2 people by the end of it. And Rhonda Belford, who's been on our show a few times, she pulled it off. She got the win over Joan Lassonde, who's a great person, great candidate, and we know she'll still be around and involved in the party. And hopefully we'll have her on one of our podcasts in the future. That race did not generate too much drama. The race that generated a lot of drama, and that is apparently still generating drama, is for the committeeman race. So it was ultimately a 2-person race. There were 3 candidates in it, but the race was really about Mark Shaw versus Dean White, even though Vince Colber was also in the race. But it was Mark Shaw and Dean White. Mark Shaw had the committee. He had the committee vote. But when it went to the floor overturned the committee vote. It went back to committee, back to the floor. It was a big fight down at the convention. There's a lot to unpack here, but I'll stop there for just a second. We've got people who were there, and intentionally, we have people on both sides of that fight. So, Chris, I know you were supportive of, and maybe still are supportive of, Mark Shaw. Aaron, you were supportive of Dean White. So we purposely have people on both sides of this to get both perspectives. I know you guys are friends in real life, but on the podcast, feel free to go at it. Let's start with you, Chris, because Aaron's been on before. Chris, you get the floor first. What's your takeaway? What did you see happen here?
First, I didn't really have a horse in the race specifically. I was more of a process guy. I supported the process. So what came out of committee came out of committee. My approach was a little bit bigger picture, and Aaron and I actually talked about it Saturday night. So Aaron and I are on the same page on this, but my concern was from the party aspect of it, leaving the Republican State Convention split, right, at odds, specifically in an important election year where we have the political wins at our back kind of pushing us. So that was my take on it. Not really much of a difference between the candidates. Ultimately, whoever gets it, gets it. But my view was I want to see the party come out of the state convention with momentum and not anger or indifference. So that was really my point. And I think Aaron and I talked about that it wasn't really much about the candidates, more about the process and the potential damage coming out of it.
That's a fair position. Aaron, go ahead.
You know, and as much as I love Chris, I mean, we were at odds in this one because I feel that the process did work itself out.
Mm-hmm.
We have committees for a reason. They make a recommendation. What is the point of sending 500 people down to Collinsville on Memorial Day weekend if we're not going to listen to what they have to say? And clearly the floor and the delegates who were appointed by their township, ward, and county chairman needed a voice, and they had that voice. And they did not want Mark Shaw for whatever reason they have. I mean, people have different perspectives on it. As I mentioned, I was, in the court for Dean White, and the people's voices were heard. Yes, was it normal functionary part of it that happens every convention? No, it was not pro forma, but the members of the delegation got to stand up, have their votes counted twice, and eventually they elected the person that they wanted. And I think the process worked itself out. And I think the people's voices were heard, especially the grassroots. For so many many times grassroots voices aren't being heard. This was an opportunity for them to showcase that they have a say in what happens in Illinois Republican politics.
Yeah, I think the races themselves leading up to it got not enough attention, and for what is a important position with our party. I mean, these two people that we elect represent Illinois to the National Republican Party for the next 4 years and maybe longer than that. So these positions are definitely important, and they didn't get a lot of attention leading up to the convention. But at the convention, this was really the big focus. I mean, everyone was focused on this. I know that evening, Friday evening, Aaron, you can speak maybe to this. There was a huge grassroots effort. Mark Shaw was huddled in one corner, Dean White in another corner. They were making calls, they were taking meetings. If you like sort of watching the political process play out, Friday night was fascinating.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I was one of the members over there. There's a process in order to do it. We needed to get 50 plus chairmen from townships or counties or wards in order to sign the petition to modify the rules on the floor. We got 58. There was a big legal hubbub the next morning on Saturday morning where I was there with Dean, and we had our legal counsel. Mark Shaw was there with legal counsel. We were having what was effectively a petition challenge. We ended up only coming under 48, so too short, which I'm still proud of because we had less than 10 hours in order to try to find 50 chairs in a convention that only had 65 present. So after that was done, there was no more nominations from the floor. So it had to go back to committee when it was voted down. And the people spoke, right? I mean, that's the point of having the delegates. That's the point of this whole process. The rules were followed. Nobody cheated, at least in our side of the delegation. And we can get into other side as a separate comment to that. If some people have been following what's been uncovered on Facebook by some of our political leaders like Tom DeVore and some of the other people within the party. And, Collin, I don't, if you want to speak to that, we can. But really, I think it happened. It was a really robust discussion. And we came out with a chairman, which was ultimately the main goal.
Yeah, I mean, I hate being in a position to defend people that I'm not necessarily allies with. Anybody who knows the political process know that Mark Shaw and I are cordial, but we're definitely not allies. But I got to be honest, when Darren Bailey came out that day on Friday, that night, saying we don't need establishment rhino Mark Shaw betraying us again, he tweeted that. I have to defend Mark Shaw on that. I mean, there's nobody less establishment than Mark Shaw because nobody in the establishment has ever wanted Mark Shaw. Let's be honest. I've seen convention after convention that we've been honored to be able to work with where Mark Shaw has tried to get positions and the party has tried to stop him. So to call Mark Shaw establishment is frankly kind of hilarious. And I'm put in a position to have to defend the guy, which I hate. But ultimately, I think that was an unfair, a viewpoint of Mark Shaw. I'll give him credit. He's a hard worker who travels the state. He did, I don't know how many trainings of Republicans around the state, precinct committeemen, a job nobody else wants. Heck, I do trainings and I didn't want to have to travel the state to train committee people. And so I think the guy deserves credit for that. But I don't know Dean White much. Aaron, I don't know if you want to speak to this. Our new committeeman, give us the positives of why you believe he was the right choice and why you think he's going to be good for the party.
Well, I think it's good for the party because I think he takes a fresh perspective on what we as Illinois conservatives really want to see within our Republican establishment in our party. I think that he brings a new voice to a lot of people that have been felled on deaf ears and gives them an opportunity to be heard. I think that he's a great representative from many different reasons. He is a very strong businessman, has a very successful business here in Illinois, Peerless Fencing, for those of you that may not be familiar with Dean's background, but it is a family business that has grown across the country and is one of the largest companies here in Illinois. He's been incredibly generous with his donations, not only to specific candidates, parties, but also grassroots organizations. So, there's not a lot of Dean Whites in the world. And I think we should be really happy that we have one in our corner and that's represented us on a national scale. Certainly there's some areas that he could polish because he is not an established politician and he doesn't know the ins and outs of, sometimes lighting people on fire when it's, a little bit of sugar would work in that direction. But he's very authentic. He's honest and he's a lot of high integrity. He's not going to lie. He's not going to steal and he's not going to cheat. And if you know anything about some of the antics that was taking place on the other side, as far as taking fake delegate badges and voting and, physically threatening people, physical violence on the convention floor that took place that I had an upfront and close view of, those are some of the things that we don't want in our party. And then I'm glad that we're going to prevent from going to represent us on a national scale.
Yeah, I mean we probably won't cover this too much after this week, just because, as Chris said, our focus needs to be on the Democrats. So we're sort of knocking this out, airing this out now, so we can move on. Aaron, you mentioned there may still be some continued fallout from this situation. I got a lot of phone calls throughout this process. If you didn't notice, people like Chris and I were smart enough to get the hell out while this was all going on. So Friday night,
Sure.
we brought cigars. We went out to the patio. We had 50, 60 people out taking my cigars for free. I should have charged for it. We all hung out there to avoid the drama. But one of the things that did happen that I was getting a lot of texts and calls about was just where these delegate passes did come from, because Mark Shaw did bring with him a number of people who weren't actually officially delegates, yet they were somehow given delegate passes. And I guess there's a state central committee discussion even tonight. This is Thursday to discuss that. There's some fallout from that might happen. And Aaron, you mentioned a number of people witnessed Mark Shaw threatening you to a fight because he was so angry over the whole situation. So there is potentially some continued fallout from this. Our hope, I'd assume we all agree, that we get all over this week and move on, because we're into June now and the real fight has begun. Let's start focusing on the Democrats. But as you said, Aaron, there may be some continued fallout on this. If you'd like to cover that, feel free.
Yeah, when we're on the convention floor, being our part of whatever role that we had as part of the political process, those tempers are going to flare and people are going to become frustrated, right? But there's really no place for, threatening people with physical violence. Mark Shaw, got into my face and told me that he was going to kick my effing rear end. You know what I mean? You can figure out what that real vernacular to that was, which, I get it. Tempers are high, but that's not an appropriate place as a representative of our state central committee and the vice chair of the Republican Party. Furthermore, not only did he get passes, delegate passes for people that were with him, he himself was not an appointed delegate. So as remember, the delegate process, you have to be appointed by your county chair. Keith Brin is the county chair of Lake County, where Mark Shaw resides. He was not appointed delegate. However, there's a big picture of him standing up, holding his delegate badge, voting for himself. So we can't be a party about election integrity. We can't be a party about fairness if we have people and bad actors within our own party that are doing those exact same games. So there's convening of a meeting of the State Central Committee today at 5 o'clock in about an hour and a half that I will be joining. And we'll have a robust discussion about this. And if there's any discipline that's necessary, the committee will then vote on it.
Yeah, and again, hopefully we handle this, we knock it out. I mean, it's also a thing about how elections have consequences. I mean, just before the convention, Mark Shaw had a candidate. He ran against Keith Brin to try to knock out Keith Brin in Lake County, which didn't succeed. And so now, again, elections have consequences. You're probably not going to get named a delegate to the state convention by the chairman you just tried to wipe out with some underhanded tactics. So politics, this is a lot of inside baseball here, but the chickens always eventually come home to roost. To the people who hadn't had a chance to speak, you don't need to, but Chris, Katie, Michael, in case you guys want to speak about the situation, here's your chance to speak up. Otherwise, we'll move on to our next topic.
It was my first convention involved at the committee level. And it was eye-opening, to say the least, when it came to the floor vote. I guess I saw things in a little different perspective in regarding the extra delegates that appeared. And the numbers weren't adding up toward the end. So I'm not really sure things were happening very fast. So, yes, I hope that we can move forward and, be all on the same team. We're all trying to get Republicans elected. So let's move forward and do that.
Couldn't agree more with you. Chris, Michael, you guys good?
So I got two quick things. Number one, there's a reason why DPI doesn't have conventions, because if DPI had conventions, and they would also turn into absolute disasters and make DPI look like idiots. So there's a reason why the Democrats don't do the same concept. And I wish there was a way the Republicans couldn't do it either, because I think it would be more advantageous to get these things.
Chris, I'll push back on that. I think, listen, sometimes you got to crack some eggs to make an omelet. And honestly, I like that our party is grassroots driven. You look at the Democratic Party, you look at who leads their party, who's on their central committee, who's the people who have a voice in their party. It's the insiders. Whereas, our party being grassroots driven, it's the local parties, it's the local leaders who make up our party, who do the work and make these kinds of decisions. Yeah, it's messy sometimes, but I'd much rather have this than have the top-down approach the Democrats have.
Yeah, but the Democrats win elections. Second point is this RNC committeeman thing really doesn't matter. It really doesn't. It doesn't matter who the RNC committeeman is, because there's like 100 and some odd people on the RNC committee, and most of their votes are unanimous. Like it's just two people who get to go to, DC and vote on things
Right.
in unanimous
Yeah.
fashion and pay for things out of our own pocket. I don't think any of this matters. I think this was a whole lot of hoopla to get pretty much the same result of Mark Shaw, who is also a grassroots conservative person, against Dean White, who's also a grassroots conservative person. Really ended with the same, group of people winning. I know that the grassroots don't consider that the fact right now, but this doesn't really matter in the long scheme of things.
Chris, you're 100% wrong on that. Whoever is our representative at the RNC convention is a representative of us, and they have to advocate upon us. So when dollars are being doled out for congressional races all throughout the state of Illinois, especially in Southern Illinois, we need to make sure that our voice is heard at the national level. When there's funding for voter database, when there's technology, when there's all these different resources that are available on a nationwide platform, we need to make sure that we have somebody strong advocating for Illinois to make sure that they're bringing some of that technology and those resources back home to us. So to say that this is a position that is irrelevant is in fact, I believe, false. I also think it's very generous of these people because they spend somewhere between $20,000 to $50,000 a year traveling to these events. They're expected to donate. They're expected to speak. They're supposed to go to all these different Lincoln Day dinners and represent us as a leader of the party. So I think it's disingenuous to minimize the impact and the volunteerism of somebody that goes and represents Illinois on the national level for both the men and the women.
I would argue as a counterpoint.
Chris, I'm just no. I like the back and forth. I think you both made great points. We're going to leave it at that. Michael, you're our ray of sunshine. You want to finish this off here?
I would just say, obviously there was plenty of bad behavior to go around, and hopefully we can kind of air that out over the course of the next week or so, put that behind us, and let's unite, because that's what we need to do. I mean, I think everybody agrees with that we've got to have a united front with some of the races and things like that are going to be on the ballot this cycle. We can't be divided. So let's figure it out. I mean, I think.
Why does everybody keep saying that? Why do you keep everyone saying we got to be together? Whatever happened to making sure that we get our house in order and cleaned out first before we then start working on the next issue? If we keep doing the same thing and being united when we have bad actors within our party that we do nothing about, it sets an example for us. So I think certainly, yes, at some point we need to be united, but I think we need to vet everything else out that's happened in the last 2 weeks. I think we need to excommunicate some bad actors from our party, and then we can talk about, getting back together and moving forward.
No, I agree with that.
I think the best opportunity. I think the best opportunity here, to be honest, I'm always thinking about politics and strategy. The Illinois Republican Party should have a giant fundraiser that you sell tickets to. Chris, I know, is Provenzano. That is a fight. Aren't you like a fight promoter? You're big into fighting. Like Chris could get us a ring. We could have Aaron and Shaw duke it out in the ring. We could sell tickets. All money, all proceeds go to the Illinois Republican Party. Like this is a huge fundraising opportunity. Come on.
Yeah, and then I go and I hit Mark Shaw, and then he hits the ground, and then I get charged with elder abuse. You know what I mean? And then I had to spend up the rest of my life because I hit a 70-year-old man. I mean, let's be realistic here. If you
This is a good intro to our song of the week. So I typed in some of the notes we had from our conversation about how this epic fight is going to be happening between Aaron and Mark. And it spat out a song called The Epic Bout. And it's a rap song. Geez, electro rap is the song that's come out. So let's take a listen to what this AI generator has decided will be the fight song of these two. Let's give it a listen.
Mark Shaw steps in the ring, old man swayed by dreams, out of shape, not quite lean, facing a fighter so mean. Aaron Dill, Mark strong and swift, judo black belt, what a gift. Mark trembling, legs don't lie, this fight won't last too long. It's a showdown in the night, Shaw man, don't let it fight the crowd. Round one starts, it's clear to see Aaron's moving gracefully.
Okay, so Collin, I'm going to need a copy of that song emailed to me immediately because that's going on my playlist, and then it's definitely going on my Facebook page.
Aaron takes him to the ground. Poor Marcus tries to breathe. Aaron's skill won't let him leave. It's a showdown in the night. Shaw man, don't want to fight the crowd.
All right, then it just bridges from there. That's pretty good. I think it's one of my favorites.
Well, that's my top on my playlist. So honestly, though, I do want you to send that to me. That's going to be amazing.
I mean, I don't know how that was rap, but still, it was a little bit of fun, and probably accurate. I mean, listen, I don't think you should ever maybe, I'll threaten Aaron with a lot of things, but knowing he's a judo black belt, I'm not going to threaten him to a fight. I'm not going to threaten Provenzano to a fight. Like I'm dumb.
I'm not
but
a
I'm
fighter,
idiot.
not me. I just work the
You've
fight.
been,
Aaron,
but you've been
you
around
still-
fights enough to know, like I'm just an Irishman. Unless I have a bar stool to swing, I'm useless.
I think Aaron has a ring himself because I was trying to help him sell it at one point to some of the people in the fight industry. So be careful.
It's showing off the belts.
These
One
are
day AI is gonna take
mixed
over,
martial
Bob.
arts cage fighting belts right
There he
here.
is.
So if Mark Shaw wants to take his chances, test his skills, I move like a butterfly, sting like a Mack truck. Let's go.
I think we should
There you
open
go.
up a Legends division for Aaron. We're going to get him back in the cage.
You have a Filipino
Grand
version of that,
champion,
Aaron?
baby.
Like you float like a butterfly, and like do you have a Filipino version of floating like a butterfly?
Yeah, my fighting name used to. I had 13 professional cage fights. I went 11-2, and my cage name was the Raging Asian Del Mar.
Nice.
Right? That was cool back in 2000 and 2001. Right? That was tough back then.
We all were cool at some point, right? We're well past those days. All right, let's go to our next topic. Aaron, I guess you're just going to be the center of attention for our first two topics here, but we at our booth, the Empower Illinois booth down in Springfield, we ran a straw poll for who should run for Illinois governor in 2026. We gave people the opportunity to select of a list of like 20 names that had been submitted by people prior to the convention or add their own name. And we got a number of interesting results here. Lane's going to bring this up in post on screen. The top 5 vote getters were Aaron Delmar, Mike Bost, Darren Bailey, Jesse Sullivan, Jeannie Ives, a pretty solid top 5. I'm going to quickly lead. There was a number of other names that were brought up. I'll quickly read these. Rodney Davis, Gary Rabine, Todd Ricketts, Darren LaHood, Paul Shiv, Richard Porter, Tom Demmer, Tom DeVore, Kirk Dillard, Greg Hart, Richard Irvin, Steve McClure, Leslie Munger, Sue Rezin, Adam Engiewski, Steve Balich, Christina Clausen, Jason Plummer, Eric Wallace, and Dean White. So a lot of names brought up, but there was a clear top 5 that was brought up. Now, to be fair, there certainly was some campaigning going on, which I give, frankly, Aaron some credit for it. You sponsored the bags, so everyone had Aaron Delmar's logo on their bags walking around the convention. You were buying drinks. So some people complained about, hey, listen, Aaron campaigned for it. But I'll tell you, from my perspective, if you know how to campaign, that's a plus in an election, not a negative. So kudos to Aaron for whipping the vote. I can tell you that everybody who voted in this straw poll was somebody who was at the convention. Anybody who tried to vote from outside the convention or who tried to vote multiple times, there's a reason why I employ data experts. They wiped those votes out. So this is actual votes from those who were at the convention. So kudos to you, Aaron. And I look at that top 5 and I say, that's a pretty solid top 5, at least to start. I'm sure we'll have more names coming up down the line here as we get closer to 26. But my takeaway was looking at that long list of names, we have a bench as a Republican Party, and that's something we haven't had in a long time. So since you won the straw poll, I got to let you speak first, Aaron, then we'll let everybody else open up.
Well, you know what? A straw poll is just what it is. It's a straw poll. We're 2 years out. I have no intentions of running for anything anytime soon. It's humbling to be included in that list. And, of course, it gives you a little bit of an ego stroke, but right now, all I'm considering and all I'm working on right now is getting all the candidates on the 2024 ballot elected and trying to give a voice to the grassroots. And so, if there's ever an opportunity that I can serve our people of Illinois and the Republican Party in any fashion that I feel I can be effective and efficient with, I'll look at that time. But right now, it's just honored to be on that list, and I'm excited about our opportunities for wins in this November, not in November of 26.
Yeah, anybody else have thoughts either on that list or just on any names you've heard or people you might want to see run for governor? I mean, I don't think he'd ever do it, but Chris, your boss, Sean Morrison. I mean, he'd be a great guy, but I don't think he's ever looked at that. But I love Sean. I mean, there's certainly lots of people that could be listed as Republican options. We've got a pretty good base look that we're looking at, or a bench, if you will.
I appreciate the fact that you guys actually did the straw poll two years out, because running statewide isn't something you decide 6 months out. If you're a serious candidate for governor, you should be thinking about it right now. 2 years out. It takes a lot of planning, especially in a state that's controlled by Democrats, the blue state. So having that discussion, hopefully some of these individuals may be interested and are looking at it, but taking the names away from the slate, I think what we need are candidates that, number one, have the ability to raise money. Number one. Two, have a clear and concise understanding and articulation of the critical issues impacting Illinois, and being able to convey those issues, the ability to message to the swing voters. All right, you have to have that ability. Also, we need a candidate or candidates that are going to be competitive in Cook County and the collar counties. Those are my 4 big points that I always look at when it comes to a statewide candidate. If you can check those 4 boxes, then you're a legitimate candidate to run statewide.
Ooh, I like that.
So what I think Chris is saying is that we need to find an old, rich, white guy, right?
No,
The usual and customary that we've had for the last several cycles.
Raise money, not reach into their own pockets. The ability to raise money. So that's, it's not an easy thing, but you have to have can be able to move the needle.
So I would certainly agree with Chris. I mean, it's certainly the other Chris, I guess. Never had another one of me on these podcasts before. But I would agree with him.
Much better looking you.
He's got more hair than me. That's what he's got going for him. But it is important to start talking about this now, because I remember 2022, 2022's election, you had Rabine, Schimpf, and Bailey all jumping in the race within the first 3-4 months of 2021. So these are things that immediately after November election, people are going to start thinking about. So it's good to get a pulse of where the grassroots electorate of the party stands right now. I agree with Chris's points. I think we do need to find somebody who could play into the Chicago suburbs, somebody who can kind of synthesize both a working class audience and a very suburban audience. That's been very difficult for the Republican Party to do over the last few years in the state, but I do think it's possible with the right candidate in place. One of the big issues, I mean, I'm the guy who put together the damn list of candidates for the poll. So if you're going to blame anybody, blame me. I'm going to call myself out real quick. It's a lot of names we've heard before. And one thing that, always kind of comes up in these, elections, is that there's always somebody who kind of throws himself in. The second place finisher in 2022's primary was Jesse Sullivan. Nobody knew who Jesse Sullivan was before he jumped in the race with all of his money. So that's not to say that somebody like that can't jump in the race again, or that the next gubernatorial nominee was not in the poll itself. But it is to say, these are names that we have right now. If there's another person out there who's sitting on, $2 million right away to go, and it fits all of Chris's boxes, we'd love to meet you. And if we haven't heard you yet, where the hell have you been all these years? Because we really want you right now.
Yeah. Yeah, Katie, I don't want to pigeonhole you because it's not fair to you, but I do want to ask you this question, and you can expand on any topic you want after that. But look at this list of names. Our party has made progress with bringing female candidates to the forefront, but this is definitely a very male-heavy list. Not to say that, that'd be the worst thing if we have a nominee who is a male, but to Aaron's point, another old white guy may not be our path forward here. There's a few females in here, which is heartening to see at least some progress, but is there anybody maybe that, you want to give some kudos to, or do you just want to speak to the fact that we need more females out there? Because this is definitely a very male-dominated list.
Yes, and points to where our party still is. So we definitely need to add more women to that list. I mean, that's as the Lincoln Series, we mentor and train women to run for office, and we've had so much interest at the convention. We had a vendor table for the first time, and we just had so many women who were interested, wanting to know what it was about. They want to put their foot in the, forward and, get in there and makes, some change. So I think that the women on there are great, and we just need more all around. We just need more women involved to kind of balance things out.
Well, and to Chris's point, the name that might come forward may not even be on this list. I mean, we talk about on our podcasts how this is the year of the Republican women. You look at our legislative candidates in tier 1 races, and it's a majority females, not males. So it'd be quick turnaround to win a legislative race in 24 and run for governor in 26, but not completely unheard of. So the good news is that while this list is preliminary, we are seeing really good movement with seeing young people, minorities, females step forward in our party, and we certainly need more of that. So 2024 is already a good step in that direction. Anybody else have thoughts on this before we move? Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it is. And to Chris's point earlier, Chris Provenzano, you know, we really need people to bring in, you know, the independents and the soft, you know, Democrats, and kind of balance out, ensure, as both Chris has said, that, you know, we can talk to all those different constituents and really show that we can be, you know, as we have a big umbrella and everyone can fit under it.
You know, Collin, I want to jump in real quick if you don't mind. You know, everyone keeps saying that. I keep hearing that all the time, and I've been hearing that since I got involved in politics. We need to find a way to get those swing voters to our side. We got to find a way to do that. You know, I think if you look at what happened in 2016, it wasn't about swing voters. It was about getting out our Republican voters. When you have a traditional less than 25, 30% of voter turnout on any Republican, or pardon me, in any state general election, you know, yeah, it would be nice to get some swing voters, but what if we just embolden and excite our base, right? And start getting our people out to the polls and get us on the Republican side in the 55% voter turnout and run up the score on our side, and let those that are, you know, not as much interested in our policy, our values, and our integrity sit it out at home and not vote, right? I don't know if anybody's ever done the math on that. If we can make inroads to drive our people up, you know, I mean, we have such low voter turnout.
I love you, but I'll do it so Chris Jackowiak doesn't have to do it. You're off your rocker, man. I love you, but you're giving me the Darren Bailey argument that if we just get more pure and just get more of the churches to turn out and get more conservatives to turn out. Listen, we had the purest, if you will, conservative as our candidate for governor last time, and it was proven. We have the data. He raised voter turnout enough that Republicans gained 6 points in urban or rural areas. So your point is valid that it did drive up turnout amongst the conservatives, and it did help our candidates in more rural areas. The problem is, as much as we gained in rural areas, we lost in suburban and urban areas. And so it's a politics of subtraction by addition, if you will, where you're right. Turnout does help us. The problem is we're not losing because we're not getting enough votes out of McHenry County or Carbondale or Western Illinois. We're losing because, as Chris said before, we're getting demolished in the suburbs.
But maybe he wasn't the right messenger for that message, right? I mean,
Galen,
you know, when you're voting for somebody, right, you got somebody that's got that southern draw that doesn't play well in Cook County suburbs or in the city of Chicago. But if you had somebody that had that same traditional conservative values, but was able to message it better and excite people, and you know what I mean, and bring a little bit of more pop to our party, catch people's attention, I think that we might be able to get a lot more voter turnout and maybe pull some of those swing voters. But I don't think we need to be giving up on our values and our integrity and our positions and our policies that have made America strong because we're trying to get the outside group involved.
Well, if I might, I respectfully disagree with that. I think that, you know, we have a big state. There's a lot of people, and whoever's going to be the governor is going to be the governor for all people. So we really need, you know, our leader to think about all the different constituents that there are. And we don't have to compromise our principles to do that by any means. And I think that when it comes to whomever will be, you know, chosen in the primary for governor, I surely hope that they can think with that lens to pull in, you know, those independents. Because, you know, you're not wrong, Aaron. I mean, we do have to get more Republicans out to the polls. They're not excited to come to the polls. We're not giving them anything exciting to come to the polls about. People are still disenfranchised with, you know, the way politics is. So we need to offer them something to get excited about, as you said, but also someone who they understand and who's going to, you know, who understands that, yeah, they might be conservative, but they understand where I'm coming from. They know that, you know, we have a big state and there's a lot of different people that they need to think about. So I think that if we are a little smarter about how we can attract those people, I think, I mean, we can be successful.
Well, I think I'm hearing a common thread here. I mean, we taught two trainings at the convention about how do you message, and we said flat out, you don't need to compromise on your principles. You just need to be better at messaging to be able to communicate with voters. I mean, you look at people like Peter Roskam and others who were very conservative but could still communicate with suburban voters. So I think you're both saying very similar things. I would just push back on this idea that there are enough conservatives out there that we just turn out our base will win. Not in a state like Illinois. That's the only part I'm pushing back on. I do think you're both saying a similar thing on that. We need a nominee who can communicate well with all voters. And I certainly think we can all get on the same page on that. All right, let's move ahead because we're halfway through our podcast and we only got through two topics. So let's move ahead here on our agenda. And Aaron, I know because of that meeting, we're going to lose you soon. So when you do need to jump off, just give us a wave. But we're glad to have you here as long as we can have you. So as our next topic, we're going to talk about the budget, specifically because J.B. Pritzker is getting pushback from his own party. It was Fred Crespo, it was moderates down in Springfield, and now this week it's the state comptroller, Susana Mendoza, who has tweeted and had an article about how she wishes there were more cuts. She wishes this was a more conservative approach to the budget, and it has made Pritzker and his team just completely lit on fire because how dare somebody question J.B. Pritzker and his team. But these people are not wrong. We've talked about it before. The budget is significantly increased since J.B. Pritzker took over 6 years ago. And there are worrying signs about our economy. Kafka just came out and said that May's deposits in the general funds fell by $217 million. That was a 6% decline. We see that personal income taxes declined by 4% compared to last year in May. John Deere just announced 120 layoffs. They're building a new plant in Mexico, so they're continuing their exodus out of Illinois. And our spending in the state's up over 30% in just 6 years. It's clear, common sense, obvious signs that we are spending more and more and more, including on non-citizens, while the people of the state are struggling, and now we're going to raise their taxes. And so it's even Democrats now that are calling out Pritzker and this liberal approach to taxing and spending. So I want to open this up to everybody's thoughts on this, on even Susana Mendoza, which she will get. By the way, we're going to start a new segment this week called OG of the Week and Clown of the Week. Who would we name as the OG of the week? Who would be the Clown of the Week? Susana Mendoza, even as a Democrat, would be my OG of the week if she does not back down and she comes back again and says, no, you know what, Pritzker, you're wrong. She won't do it. She doesn't have the guts to do it. But at the very least, she made at least one comment. I'd love to see her double down on fiscal responsibility. But at the end of the day, this is becoming a bigger and bigger problem. And next year's budget is already $1 billion out of whack. So Democrats are about to roll off a cliff here.
This is all political posturing and window dressing by two different parties within the Democratic Party. You got J.B. Pritzker that is trying to rack up all these different taxes to show his political progressive bona fides. And then you have Mendoza over here thinking, I know that Pritzker is most likely not going to run. So let's go ahead and give him a little bit of a whack right now and show that we can be fiscally conservative. So when I run for governor and I try to move up the political scale here in Illinois, I could say I fought Pritzker's budget. I am a blue dog. I'm all about the common people and bringing taxes down. JB's running for president. Let him be ultra progressive. I'm a reasonable, even-headed, tax-conscious Democrat, which she's not if you looked at any of her past voting record and her track record before she got in the comptroller's office. She's simply in the comptroller's office as a springboard to run for governor. And J.B. Pritzker it's basically using the same thing, the governor's mansion, to springboard for run for president. This is not about Illinois policy and what's best for the average Illinoisan in Illinois. It's about what's best for Pritzker to get to the White House and what's best for Mendoza to get into the governor's mansion.
So as I advocate for in a number of different podcasts, I think that we can take somebody doing something as a good thing. I would certainly agree with Aaron that Mendoza is using this to springboard to something. I tend to believe that she's more likely to run for mayor of Chicago against Brandon Johnson because I think that's what the position she really wants in this state. Is it possible she runs for governor? Yeah, she's very popular statewide right now. She was a top performing Democrat statewide, so she would certainly have an opening to run for governor. But I would also wager that, or I would also propose that we can take what Suzanne is doing as a good thing. The Democrats are fighting each other, at least in some degree, even though what she said really wasn't all that radical. It was, I like this budget a lot. I wish it was done better, and these couple things were different. And you see how just saying that presents a scorched earth response from J.B. Pritzker's team right now. Now, I understand they got to make JB look good going into a presidential run, whatever JB wants to do next. But I think this is kind of bringing a gun to a knife fight where one of your fellow Democratic, statewide elected officials lightly critiques your budget while also approving of it, and you just kind of bash her into smithereens. I think that's complete overkill on behalf of Pritzker's team. But I'm still glad that Mendoza had at least the gall to.
This was what, before Mendoza ran for mayor unsuccessfully, this was kind of her MO. She was that, she had a lot of Republican support in the city of Chicago. She had a lot of crossover support, but then she ran for governor. She ran statewide. She was horrible in that statewide race. I will never support her because she was awful to Leslie Munger and her team. She proved that she has no character in that race. But she's sort of going back to her roots on trying to be sort of that middle of the road. And clearly, Aaron's not wrong. This is all targeting some future race. I think it's for governor. Chris, you might be right. I think Pritzker came in hard at this, not only because he wanted to defend himself, but they're trying to grease the skids for Juliana Stratton, and they don't want Munger. They don't like Munger. And so this was their chance to attack Munger. I'm sorry, Mendoza, you're right. To attack Mendoza, well, they don't want Munger either, right? But this was their chance to attack Mendoza because they want Stratton. That's their heir apparent for Pritzker. And so I think you both kind of hit on something, but that's what I took out of this was, Pritzker trying to keep Mendoza from getting any traction because he wants his choice, which is Juliana Stratton.
Well, and like you said, there's been a lot of other people, state reps and state senators on the Democrat side that have also been critical of this budget. So I could see them seeing this as an opportunity to, hey, let's, shoot some fire towards Mendoza for her comments. Maybe some of these other people will lay off or leave us alone because, they've got divisions on this issue and a multitude of issues where, moderate Democrats and progressive Democrats are at odds on, funding for migrants, the budget, et cetera. So, I saw one where
Hold on, Michael. Provenzano, you were going to jump in.
Yeah, I'm just going to piggyback off of what everyone said here. Mendoza saw an opportunity to seek out a political lane, and the governor, being the protector of that lane, smacked her back. So this is posturing. This is looking further down the road based on that. What we know is that JB wants to move up. Could it be run for president, U.S. Senate, whatever that may be? Dick Durbin is coming towards an end. But nonetheless, to the other point, protecting Stratton's lane. So there's that lane. The question is, who is the governor going to allow to jump in there? And he's keeping her back.
Yeah. Michael, what were you saying?
I saw one where I believe it was a staffer for Pritzker, but they tweeted that if Mendoza wanted budget cuts, then she should have voted for Darren Bailey. So, they're just going all out on this.
Gotcha.
Sheesh. Well, there's definitely a lot of infighting, and as Michael said, we see this over and over that the far left progressive wing of the party in this state is getting more and more power, and it's pushing out people who those more moderate Democrats who don't really have a lane in that party at this point. So we'll see where this plays out, but it certainly puts them in a very difficult position. Hey, listen, if they want to be a voice for fiscal sanity in a state that frankly has been insane on the way that we've spent tax dollars, I like Chris's point. Let's welcome them home. If they want to speak and say the right things, then I'm all for it.
Hey, Collin, I got to drop off to get to that state central committee meeting to address some bad actors within the party. I appreciate you having me on. It's great seeing everybody. Katie, Chris, and of course, my good friend from St. Clair, Michael Butler. Y'all have a great one.
Thank you.
All right,
You
thanks,
too.
Aaron. All right, let's shift to our next topic. Also happening this week, we talked about it a little bit, that the lawsuit was being successful in the courts to stop this Democrat attack on democracy, their own threat to democracy, where they tried to stop Illinois Republicans from getting slated on the ballot. Well, it's now official. The Sangamon County judge has issued an order that will allow all these slated candidates to appear on the ballot. So it's officially been deemed unconstitutional, that you can't change the laws, you can't change the rules in the middle of an election. As we said, we were backed up. We're not attorneys, but we did say if they wanted to do it for next year, they could, just not this year because we're already in process this year. Well, we ended up being correct. The blind squirrel found the nut, and we were accurate. And so these candidates will be allowed to be slated on the ballot. So hooray for justice. Obviously, our big one is Jay Keevan, but he filed before that law was passed, so he was already going to be okay. But there were a number of other candidates who were slated. We'll talk about those candidates as our next agenda item. This is just over this lawsuit and how Democrats were their own threat to democracy in this state. So anybody have any final thoughts, or do you just want to drop the mic on this one? Feel free.
I just think it was an epic failure by the Democrats and a big win for the Republicans. I mean, they passed this bill, super last minute. It motivated a lot of Republicans to get out there and get signatures for candidates to make sure that they were going to be on the ballot, which I think was very unifying for us, which is always a good thing. And then you get this verdict from the judge that says what they did was unconstitutional. So they've really gotten a black eye over this, which is good to see.
Yeah, I mean, listen, even Democrat blogs were calling out what they did, calling it all sorts of things about how this was, anti-democracy, how it was a total overreach. I mean, when even Democrat blogs are whacking you, you've probably taken it too far.
No doubt.
I'll make the point from their perspective, the way I see it. Why not? Because when you have total control and total power, you feel what? Unstoppable. So they probably sat around the bar having a few drinks. Let's throw this against the wall. Let's throw it. Why not? This is the last. They have such control over so many mechanics already. Let's try this. Maybe we get away with it. Maybe it goes in front of the right judge. I mean, that's how it works. And they said, well, if we lose, we lose, but we'll give it a crack. And for next election, let's run it through. So that's their mentality. I deal with them at the county, and they want total and complete control, not 99.9%, 100%. And here was another aspect of them overreaching, of course, obviously, but they said to themselves, why not?
Yeah, well, it is the difference between how Republicans approach politics and how Democrats approach politics. Yes. We've seen it play out at the county level. Look at DuPage, look at Lake County, where Republicans want to be governing leaders. They want to work with both sides. They say, oh, let's work together. When Democrats get control, they put their foot on your throat and they just push down as hard as they can. I mean, they want absolute and utter control. And it's a difference. For them, it's war. And if we're going to win elections in this state, we got to realize that to the other side, this is war. This isn't like, this is like a 1776 where you line everybody up. We're still approaching this as Republicans with a bunch of muskets. Let's just stand in a line and shoot each other with muskets. For Democrats, this is guerrilla warfare. This is all-out warfare, and whatever it takes to win, you do. I'm not necessarily advocating for that, but I am telling our side that that's our opponent. That is who we face. They will do whatever it takes to win. You better put your big boy pants on, your big girl pants on, and get in the arena, because this is war. This is not patty cake.
And at the very least, the Democrats were successful at least causing chaos for a few weeks and making poor Michael Butler and his team drive all around God's creation of St. Clair and Madison County, try and get Jake Heaven on the ballot, completely demoralized the candidates who were being slated at the given time. I know some candidates who got slated and didn't even file because after they got slated, nobody wanted to circulate petitions for them anymore because, well, what's the point? They banned the law. Why even try at this point? There were a number of candidates who really put the pedal to the metal, got their signatures. We were able to get them on the ballot, get them, filed. But this could have been a lot more candidates filing. We could have had a lot more candidates going in November had the Democrats not, passed this law. I'm interested to see if they make another go at this for future elections because I don't know if the judge abolished this for future elections. I think they just said it was unconstitutional for this time as well. Collin, you tell me.
Yeah, they not only did they not abolish it, it only applies to these specific candidates who were in the lawsuit. So they didn't actually enjoin the entire law. They just said that these candidates who were in the lawsuit who were named are going to be allowed to run. So this is not a broad ruling. It's a very narrow ruling. But let's be honest, Democrats will repeal this if they see any opportunity where slating candidates benefits them. So this thing's going to get repealed in veto session or in January. It's not going to actually apply to next year. Let's be real. Let's talk about those candidates. 16 Republicans have slated to run against Democrats who were previously unchallenged. 14 of those are in legislative races. Not a single one is in a district that Joe Biden won by less or fewer than 20 points in 2020. So this effort was to get Republican candidates on the ballot in districts that weren't high priorities, tier 1 or tier 2 priorities. We've talked about whether or not this is a good thing on previous SFRs. I'd open up to you guys to see what you think. Is the overall effort a good thing to run candidates in districts that didn't previously have candidates? So you're open to speak about that. Eventually, I want to talk about this list of candidates because there's two that stand out to me that actually I think at least have an outside chance of being successful. The other 14, maybe not, but they obviously have different goals in mind about raising turnout and helping the party at large. but I'd be curious what you guys think about the overall effort to put candidates on the ballot in, non-competitive races, if I can word it that way.
I
Oh.
Go ahead, Katie.
No, I think we should always have a Republican on the ballot. We should always have a voice in the race. I know last year, I think 22, it was at Cook County, Chris. No, the Chicago GOP. They had increased the number of Republicans opposing Democrats, and the Democrats were actually questioning, like, oh my gosh, we've never been challenged before. They don't expect us to be there, and we need to show them, we are here and we're stepping up. And so if we don't have anyone in the race, that's bad on us.
Well, I spoke to one of the people who's behind this effort, and one of the things they point to as their success is the resources that the incumbent Democrats had to spend on their races versus being able to spend those resources elsewhere. I'm sure Chris will tell us, either of the Chris's will tell us that's a drop in the bucket, which is not wrong, but you got to crawl before you can walk. If you can get them to force them to spend some resources, that's not the worst thing, even though, yeah, I mean, did it make an impact on the millions and millions and millions that they have available? No, not yet. But again, we got to start to make incremental gains if we're ever going to get to where we want to get to in this state. So that's one of the main things they point to as a success here, in addition to increased Republican turnout. And those are two tangible benefits.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I tend to believe that you have to be strategic about this. If you have a Senate district, which one half of the Senate district's Republican, the other half of the Senate district's really strong Democratic, and you have a Senate race that year, it's very, very foolish to throw a Republican cannon fodder candidate into the very Democratic district, because all it does is increase turnout in extremely Democratic areas. I think at other times it could be harmless. You have a D+80 district, which happens to have a few Republican pockets. You want to promote democracy. Nothing's really happened elsewhere in that district that could hurt Republicans. I say go for it. I don't think there's a big deal there. But the issue is when there's overlap with other districts, that where you could harm the Republican candidate by increasing the Democratic Party's priority in those areas. That's what I would say. Other than that, if you can get a candidate, go for it, but just be strategic about it.
Good point.
And Chris, you stole my thunder there. It's twofold. It's always been a question of turnout for the opposition, or tying them up and letting them use their resources, manpower and money in their own district. In 2022, as Katie had mentioned, throughout Chicago and Cook County, we slated the most candidates we had in probably 40 years or so. But to Chris's point, it was strategic. We made sure we were not going to impact any of our Republican candidates that were on the ballot. So that's a strategic point where you have to look at the numbers and see where the overlap may lay. But on the flip side of resources, when we do have those districts where there isn't the overlap, then we want to tie them up. The state reps in those districts, because they're sitting on money, they're sitting on manpower, and the way it works is for the Democrats that are unopposed, they move that money gets shuffled through their account out to other rep races, and you guys know it because you guys are running those Republican races. So that's the strategy. You take it race by race, look at each district specifically, and see the positive versus the negative, and then move from there. So, but I do like the idea that we are slating more candidates, and the more consistent we do that, I think to Collin's point, that's the direction we need to start moving this party. So everybody is in lockstep. Say, look, our goal here is more candidates. And one point I want to add: this is a unique election year. There's some political wins that we haven't seen before. Some gusts coming from inside the city of Chicago, and having some candidates on the ballot. Let's see just how legitimate those voices are. Is it a lot of voices? Is it a few voices? We won't know, but if we give them a choice at the ballot, will there be a protest vote like we're hearing, like the rumblings we've been hearing now for the last 6 to 10 months? So I think it's a good test for us to see exactly, is there any movement within the Democratic voting base in the city of Chicago, like we've been hearing, surrounding obviously the immigration issue. So time will tell, but I think having those people on the ballot this time around, we'll find out some new data and some new answers.
So like anything in politics, it's not necessarily what you do, it's how you do it. I think this blanket statement that we should run a candidate in every race is not true. But also the other side that says, no, don't challenge any of these Democrats is also not true. As usual, the truth lies somewhere in between. And it's if you can be strategic and thread the needle is where you can get the win. So that's pretty clear. Two of these districts I want to call out just because they are closer. So the 31st Senate district, there's not a lot of races for the Senate Republicans to play in just because of the way that the maps are drawn and the way that the 2 and 4 year cycle has played out for them. A lot of their races aren't till next cycle. And so giving them another race to at least look at, which is now the 31st Senate district, Lane will bring a map up and post. But Republicans now have Ashley Jensen of Winthrop Harbor in that race against Senator Mary Edley Allen. Biden, yeah, he won that district by 23, but Edley Allen only won it by 14. It's rated as a D+10 if you look at the local races throughout that district. Are we going to win a D+10 district in Lake County? It's, unlikely. But just doing a quick Google, I don't know Ashley Jensen, but just a quick Google, she's younger, she's a realtor. That's absolutely somebody we should be bringing into the party. So just on its face, I love it. And if we can make Edley Allen have to fight for her district, whether that benefits us this year or next cycle or the cycle after that, it sounds like a really smart play. And then the 53rd House District, that's the Walker's former seat. He appointed himself to the Senate, so it's now an open seat. Walker won it by 14% in 2022. It's only a D+6 district if you look at the local races. Trump hurts us in that district badly because it's a suburban Cook County district. But if you look at the local races, it's just D+6. You've got the Wheeling Republicans there who are super active. They work their butts off. And the candidate who's running, Ronald Anderman, from a quick Google, looks like he's one of their members. So it's going to get Wheeling Republicans even more active to support one of their own. Again, I think two districts there that are worth at least looking at here, that are at least on the fringes of maybe they actually could be in play at some point, whether this cycle or soon. So 31st Senate District, 53rd House District, and that list of 16 races, those two stood out to me as not complete, utter crazy opportunities. All right, let's move on. So when you look at 2024 in the election, you start to think who is going to be the most vulnerable. And I believe a progressive group just gave us a wonderful opportunity. So there's a group called the Citizen Action Illinois. They claim to be the state's largest progressive coalition. And they released in the last week their 2024 legislative scorecard. And so, of course, I immediately pulled it up and compared it to our list of vulnerable Democrats and said, all right, what does this largest coalition of progressives feel about these vulnerable Democrats? Let me go down the list here of these vulnerable Democrats and their ratings by the progressive coalition. Katie Stewart got an 87%. Jen Laddish Douglas in 45, one of the hardest districts for Democrats to get a hold of or to hold on to. She got 100% by this group. Nabila Saeed got a 93. Suzanne Ness, 100. Sharon Chung, 93. Harry Benton, 87. Ann Stavra Murray, 100. Mike Hastings on the Senate side got a 92. Are we going to win every one of those districts? No. But if you're the Republican candidate in those districts, this is a gift. You can absolutely use this to whip up your base. You can absolutely use this to raise money. And you can use it to point out how your opponent is not the centrist that they pretend to be. Harry Benton constantly tries to say, hey, I'm a centrist, I'm a moderate. Jen Laddish Douglas all the time tries to pretend like she's a moderate, yet she got 100%, the highest possible rating from this progressive coalition. Katie Stewart, even at 87%. This gives an opening to Republicans to point out to swing voters just how progressive these Democrat opponents are. I look at this as a gift given to us by these far left groups, and we absolutely need to take advantage. Any thoughts by you guys?
Well, first of all, I have to give a little shout out, I guess, to Gabby Shanahan, who is running against Harry Benton. So I
put that on the tee for you, Katie. So good job.
Thank you. I took a good swing. Yeah. So I mean, she is running a really hard race. She's working super hard, and I think, so she graduated from the Lincoln Series class of 23, and she's ready to go. So I think she's going to give a fight.
Well, and you look at our candidates. I mean, you look at Nabila Saeed, her opponent, Tasiu for DK is a rock solid female candidate who should be through the Lincoln Series. So maybe after this election, we can nominate her and get her through that. You've got a female Republican running against Suzanne Ness, who got 100% in McHenry County. Her district is McHenry County based, and she got 100%. That does not play in ruby red McHenry County. You mentioned our candidate against Harry Benton. What about Desi Anderson against Sharon Chung? I think Desi's also a Lincoln Series graduate, but maybe I could be wrong on that.
She's not, but she is a great supporter of ours. Yes, definitely.
Perfect. So, I mean, you've got, to our previous conversation about getting more female candidates, you see some of these tier 1 races, we've got female candidates running that are great. And this really gives us an opening. I mean, Michael, I pass it to you. Katie Stewart getting an 87% by these progressive groups. I can't imagine that plays in that district.
Yeah, absolutely not. I think, like you said, I mean, this is kind of an example of some of these liberal groups kind of doing our opposition research for us. I'd love to take a look at some of the list of some of the bills that they're highlighting and saying that, Katie Stewart was with us on these things, because you put that on a mailer or get that out to, Republicans and moderate voters in that district, they're probably not going to like what they see. So hopefully that's something that we can take advantage of. Yeah, 87%, not a good score for the Metro East, I don't think.
Yeah, you want to claim you're a moderate, and you just got outed by your own progressive coalition, which I love. A couple of the other things I saw in here, Chris, I want to ask you about this. Natalie Toro got 100%, and yet Democrats still went after her and wiped her out. Progressives wiped her out. Is that a sign that even if you're progressive, you might not be progressive enough for today's Democratic Party? What do you think about that? Toro got 100%.
Which Chris are you talking to?
I don't know, both of you, man. It's your region. It's Southern Cook County.
CJ first.
All right, so it's not Southern Cook County. Natalie Toro's in the city of Chicago on the north side, in the worst place on earth, Logan Square.
Fair.
And in any case, yes. I mean, Natalie Toro. I mean, they claimed that she was a moderate. Yeah, she's tied to Iris Martinez. Is Iris Martinez a moderate? Probably not either. But it's all about perception nowadays. You have to understand. And now, it's and polarization. That the Democratic Party has moved so far to the left, there are no moderates. Natalie Toro was called a moderate when she would have been so far to the left of the Democratic Party in this Illinois State Senate 10 years ago. She would have been one of the most radical members of the caucus. They would have called her a communist back then, probably. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I don't even want to think about what they would have called her back then. So that's what you're dealing with nowadays. There is no such thing as an actual moderate, but progressives, they're going to keep pushing the envelope. They're going to keep pushing the envelope so that, unless you support like abortions on wheels or something like that, you're going to be considered like a moderate candidate, not a true progressive, not a true Democrat. That's where the Democratic Party is going right now. And if it opens up the possibility for the Republican Party to actually grab the center, will they? Who knows? But it's an opportunity.
This is where the messaging component of the Republican Party needs to really step up, and the resources need to be put behind this. Now we have a ranking from the Progressive Coalition percentage-wise. That's fantastic, but now what we need out of Springfield is specifically what votes were taken to achieve that 87%, and how do those votes negatively impact the constituents within their legislative districts. That's where the Republicans need to really zero in on their messaging, where it's relatable and understandable to the voter on the street. I think that's where we've kind of lost our way a little bit in the last several election cycles, where some of these far left progressive people have picked up House seats that normally we should have been able to hold on in the last few election cycles. But it comes down to the messaging, really bringing that message down where it's one stop. We should not be asking voters to take 1 or 2, 3 steps to figure out an issue. It should be clear, concise, one stop. They understand it, they grasp it, and this is how they're voting against your own personal interest. So that's what I take away from this: is how, as a party, do we shape our message and use this information to help our candidates get across the finish line.
Well, CP, I mean, I'm going to speak your language here. When I work in other states and train in other states, which we're getting to do a lot more of in our company now, something like this comes out. The state party or some central organization would package it. They'd send out press releases on it in every one of those districts. They would send out messaging to those candidates on here's what you should say. Now, I'm going to give it out here to Don Tracy and the party. They don't have the staff to do this, so I don't blame them for it. But to your point, we need that. It's part of why this podcast exists, is to get these messages out, because they're just the resources don't exist at the party. So we're trying to help out a little bit and say, guys, here's the things you guys need to be doing. You need to be talking about. So I don't blame them for it. They need more resources because they need more staff. They don't have someone who could sit here and do this. But if we're going to turn the state around, this is the kind of thing that needs to be done. We need press releases in every one of these districts. We need packaged messaging that goes out that says, here are the bad votes that your opponent made on these bills that got them this ranking by the Progressive Coalition. Hammer the crap out of them for these over the summer. Like, that is the next step if our party is going to come back to relevance. And again, they don't have the staff today to do it. So if you one of our listeners, if you want to see this done, you got to support our party. You got to donate to the party because they need help to be able to pull this off. So I don't blame them for it, but we're never going to turn the state around until we can do things like that. So that's part of why we do this podcast, is if we can help in any way by getting the message out that these are the things we ought to be talking about, we want to help however we can.
It's one of the most, I believe, one of the top three most essential things is the communication, rapid response communication. To your point, I am on many state party email lists, so I see what other state parties are doing just for that purpose. Our HRO, our SRO, our state party needs a rapid response communication. When something happens, boom, that is shot out to everybody like the Democrats do. But to your point, this is where we need people to donate and to help fund that element. It explains specifically our donation is going to what? Communications, rapid response, all of those types of things. That's where our focus needs to be from a fundraising standpoint, not from 30,000 feet. Let's bring it down to about 2,000 feet right here. This is what we're going to create with your dollars. So when you sit in front of a big fundraiser, here's specifically the program that you can help fund. That's where we need to take this if we're going to play catch up.
Yeah, and people like to blame the party, but listen, my company got the chance to do the 2012 convention, the 2016 convention, and help with those conventions. The staff for each of those conventions was ginormous compared to what the party had at 24. We were all, or many of us, all of us here now today, we're at that convention. Just happened down in Collinsville, and it's a handful of staffers running around getting no sleep because they're trying to run an entire convention, 3, 4, 5 people running a whole convention. Back when we were doing conventions, we had 20, 30 people. And so you can't expect them to do all of this when there's just a few of them trying to keep the lights on. But if we're going to win, this is absolutely the kind of program we need, because messaging, communications, it's where we're unfortunately very bad as conservatives, as Republicans. It's where we need the most help. And this is the kind of a thing is just a gift that more than likely we're just going to watch kind of float away. But my hope is, as usually happens, I get a bunch of text messages after these podcasts go live from local Republicans who say, I heard it, I saw it, we're going to do it. I'm drafting a press release right now. We're putting out an email right now. So please, to our listeners, if any of these people that we just mentioned are in your region, start hammering them hard on how progressive they are, because they're going to try to convince voters that they're moderates, that they're conservatives, that they just lowered taxes, even though they actually raised taxes down in Springfield. Start to fight that narrative right now. A couple other things that stood out to me. I'll do this really quickly. I'm a broken record on this, but Matt Hansen in House District 83. I hate that we never got a candidate against Hansen. DUI Matt Hansen. He got 100% by this group. That district, District 83, is absolutely a district we should be playing in. So probably the last time I'll say it, because I want to be all positive for our party going into November, but we missed the boat on 83. Hansen is super vulnerable. My state rep, Mary Beth Canty, got 100%. And I can tell you right now, Palatine, Arlington Heights, yes, we are, especially on social issues, this region has become a bit more liberal, but this is not 100% progressive region. We've got opportunities here to get some wins down the road if we play this game right. All right, speaking of vulnerable Democrats, we don't have a lot of time left, but I want to talk about this. In the budget votes, one of the things I always look at is who voted no. Some of those Democrats who voted no are moderates in their fiscal wannabe conservatives sometimes, and that's why they might have voted no. But a lot of these voted no because they're vulnerable. And so I always like to look at the list of who did leadership give a pass? Who did they give a walk to? Because if they give a pass to their member on not having to vote for the budget and not having to vote for a tax hike, that's a sign that they're concerned they might be vulnerable. So here's the list of representatives and then senators who voted against the budget and or tax hike votes. Sharon Chung, Tara Costa Howard, Fred Crespo, Stephanie Kifowitz, Sue Scher, Matt Hansen, Greg Johnson, Harry Benton, Anthony DeLuca, Jennifer Gon-Gershowitz, Katie Stewart, Nabila Saeed, Larry Walsh, Lance Yednock. Some of those like Yednock, Walsh, Crespo, they are more fiscally conservative Democrats, so I understand why they voted no. But some of these others, Sharon Chung, Harry Benton, Katie Stewart, potentially in the future, Matt Hansen, these are absolutely vulnerable Democrats, Nabila Saeed. And so Democrats admitting they're vulnerable by giving them a walk on these tax hike votes is something we should know. In the Senate, it was Susie Glowiak Hilton, which I'm sure I screwed up the pronunciation. I'm sorry. Patrick Joyce and Meg Lofgren Capel, which Patrick Joyce there stands out to me as somebody that Republicans are starting to look at as maybe vulnerable in the Senate, though it would be tough to knock him out. I think you've got a target list here of Democrats who are potentially vulnerable, and they were given a walk. They were given a chance to vote no on the tax hikes and on the budget. So I don't know if anybody has thoughts on that or if that's just the sort of the full point there, but it's important to note who voted no because many of them are vulnerable.
You know, the interesting thing, going off of what Chris was saying earlier, the other Chris was saying about the slating bill, is that Welch was pretty open about the fact that this was all planned. Everything except Aaron Ortiz leaving at 3 o'clock in the morning for some inexplicable reason. All of this was planned. They knew that who was going to vote for this and who wasn't going to vote for this. And if they needed an extra vote, they were going to have this guy move over. And if they didn't need an extra vote, they could throw this guy also over here. All of this was planned. This wasn't really just, I mean, some of these, yeah, like Anthony DeLuca. Anthony DeLuca was a Republican 20 years ago. He probably might still be a Republican, who knows? So he's going to vote no on the budget. But everybody else, like, they know what's going on here. This wasn't about, policy or actual political convictions. This was about, the speaker says I don't got to vote on this because I might lose. I'm not going to vote on it, which you got to give Welch a little bit of credit for, but I'm just not going to give him all the credit because it almost ascended into chaos because his assistant majority leader left for some reason at 3 a.m. So I think that this is something to call out, that they're just planning votes and it has nothing to do with people's actual opinions.
Yeah, well, and I'd look at this list. I mean, I see 76. Yadnock is a moderate, and frankly, it's why he's left. He said, I'm leaving because I don't fit in this Democratic Party. If you look at that district, House District 76, it's only D2. Yadnock wins it solidly. Yadnock wins it by 15. But he's not the guy running. The Democrats have nominated a candidate who's way more progressive than Lance Yadnock. Republicans have Liz Bishop. Do we win that district this cycle? I don't know, but that is not a runaway liberal district. You see it, and Yednock casting yet another vote that's more of a moderate vote. His heir apparent there, his successor there, is not anywhere near as moderate as Yednock was. And so I look at his no vote even again as a sign that he's voting his district. District 76 is not a progressive district, and that sets up Republicans under Liz Bishop to maybe have a shot in November. All right, we are steaming towards the end. Let me just look down our list because we're for sure not going to get to any of this or a lot of this. We've got, let's see, crime and immigration. We've got staff unionization under Welsh. We've got the estate tax. We've got drama, even more drama from these pro-Palestinian groups. I don't know. What do we cover with the last 5 minutes that we have left here? Anybody feel strongly about any of these topics here?
Well, I see my suggestion made the list. Chicago trying to save downtown business district. Let's
jump to that.
Yeah, and the reason why I threw that in there because it's directly tied to the budget that just passed. It's directly tied to the crime issue. It's directly tied to all of those things. I track the sales of commercial real estate very closely. Obviously, I work for a Cook County commissioner, and as we've been saying, and I'm going to quote Elon Musk. The next anvil to fall is commercial real estate. I think he said that about 1.5 years ago on Joe Rogan's podcast, and it's happening, and we're seeing it. Some of the information we're getting out is obviously Chicago's downtown is struggling. Most across the country are, but ours more so percentage-wise than the others. And what are the factors behind that? Number one, now we have what? We have an illegal immigration crisis, $1 billion added to the state budget. Businesses see that, investors see that, developers see that. All of those things are adding up. We have crime running wild through the business district. I work downtown. I see it, right? More businesses continue to close. So you have this psychological problem with the crime. Now you have now what's coming due now? Mortgage payments. And so we're seeing more and more business commercial offices being sold at 20% less than what they sold for 10 years ago. So this is a serious issue. This is the anvil to next anvil to fall, and it's starting to fall now. So, but everything is tied to it. State government, city, policy, Brandon Johnson. What kind of confidence did his new administration bring to the business community, to the real estate community? So that's why I suggested it, because I think that is occurring because of everything we've discussed up until this point. So,
well, and they're talking about giving the most generous subsidies in the whole country to try to save the
yes.
downtown business district. So to me, that's almost a recognition of failure. What we've done hasn't worked. And so we basically need to bribe people to stay in the downtown area because everything else that we're doing, our agenda isn't working. That's how I read that. So yeah, I think this is a great topic. Who else has thoughts on this?
So it's, in addition to it being everything Chris mentioned regarding crime, immigration, every other problem the city of Chicago has right now because of the idiot who's mayor of it. It's also after effect of COVID, because what happened was with COVID, everybody started working remotely, and these companies realized I don't have to pay for rent in these skyscrapers downtown anymore, and I can basically just have everybody work at home. Now they're moving back to it. Companies are realizing that work activity and progress isn't getting accomplished with people working at home as much. So they want people to gradually move back to the office. But some of these companies are only looking at the bottom line. They realize they don't have to pay rent every month. And that's why these office complexes are remaining vacant downtown. It's going to be a bad thing. And long term, the issue is going to be if you don't have businesses in these high-rise buildings downtown, what are you going to put in them? The next logical answer is apartments. And eventually, to go hand in hand with the migrant crisis, maybe they're a place where you put these undocumented and these migrants. It's not the worst idea in the world if you're thinking from a practical perspective, but that's where this is going. If they can't figure out commercial real estate downtown anytime soon, we're just going to have high-rise Section 8 or just ghost towns of office complexes.
Well, and I'd ask it, CP, I'm going to use initials. It seems to work better. So CP, how much of this is also just the property tax burden that these buildings face? I mean, Cook County has an extreme progressive and Pritzker as assessor, and he continued to try to jack up the property tax rates of these high rises. And I know property tax attorneys who are constantly having to fight huge, massive increases that are out of line with the actual values of the buildings because Kage's trying to raise up those property taxes so he can reduce it for other people throughout the county. And does that play into this at all as well?
That's precisely what's been happening with Kage's office over the last 5 years. But here's the catch-22 situation. They start converting these commercial office buildings downtown into residential. What has to happen then? They have to reassess the value. It goes from commercial to residential. What happens? The value is not the same. Commercial's much higher. So you let the air out at that end of the bubble. Where's that air going to go? It's going to go right back onto the backs of the residents. You're going to have to make that money up somewhere, that property tax revenue somewhere. So you see, they've created a monster for themselves. And right now, until Springfield decides to get serious about property tax reform, this is going to continue itself, and it's only going to get worse.
Well, and we heard this out of what people like Dan Patlak from the Board of Review when he was in service in that office about how they warned for a long time. You want to keep whacking these business owners, fine, but eventually they're going to say it's too expensive, and then it's the residential, it's the residents of the city and the county who are going to end up having to make up that difference. And here we are. That reality has come to pass, and now the only solution. They even said it. The goal of this, Chris, to your point, they said, "What's the focus here? What's the move forward? It's for condos and apartments. So if you can't get businesses to fill it, you got to fill it with somebody. But now that tax burden's going on homeowners. It's going on working families, which you could have avoided this if you didn't price yourself out the market and push these businesses all out of the city."
Yeah. What about the casino? I mean, is that Chris or Provenzano? Where does that play in? to all this, do you
The
think?
casino that, because of the ridiculous taxes, is barely profitable at this point.
Yes.
Yeah, that's, I mean,
Aren't
And
they
that's the
having
biggest
another-
problem.
I think-
They can't get that thing off the ground because at this point the tax burden being so high, they're struggling to find somebody who can run a profit on that facility.
Yeah, isn't there some big problem with the investors over there where the main investor is going bankrupt or selling off or something? I read that in the paper like a month ago or something, and that's why they haven't been able to get it off the ground.
It's been a lot of problems. I don't know that any of us are going to be experts in that space, but Katie, I like it. I made a note for our producer to try to see if we can get somebody on who understands that whole situation in a future podcast. So we'll try to address that, Katie, if we can find somebody who knows more about it than we do.
yeah, it'd be interesting to know. I mean, especially, I feel that maybe towns want to bring casinos in to kind of shore up, losses and such, and,
That's what they say. Trying to balance your budget on sin taxes never works.
Mhm.
So
right. So what's going to happen, I guess. Yeah, that'd
well,
be
we just saw Pritzker do it. I mean, you could consider, if you consider gambling in part of that sin category, just as a broad, tax category, Pritzker just balanced his budget partially on yet another sin tax increase of let's increase taxes on the sports betting, I think that is the official term. That so that's how we keep trying to balance the budget there with these short-term revenues instead of long-term either cuts or revenue enhancements. And I think maybe that's the same problem here in the city of Chicago. All right, let's Katie, you're going to be our last topic, our last official topic of the day, but we can't have the president of the Lincoln Series on and not hear more about the Lincoln Series. So why don't you close us off today with, for those who don't know the Lincoln Series, because people like us know it and love it, but not everybody who's watching is going to know the Lincoln Series. So what do you guys do and why should people support you?
Right. Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about it. So the Lincoln Series, we're celebrating actually 30 years this year since our inception. And it was founded by Mary Jo Arndt and the Round Table, which was an organization 30 years ago and back in the day. And they actually modeled a program, the Lincoln Series, which is formally called the Excellence in Public Service Series after Senator Lugar's series. He started in Indiana and we were the second to follow. And the purpose goal was to have a leadership program that mentored and trained Republican women to run for office. So to boost our numbers as women in the party, get people involved, be it running for office, which is always our goal, but to be more involved behind the scenes as well. We need people front and center as well as behind the scenes. So that's the goal, the mission of our program. So our tag is empower, inspire, lead, empower, inspire, and that is something that we're charged with every class is to be able to do that. And we focus on, it's about 8 to 9 months where we have a intensive program each month, about 2 to 3 days, where we focus on different aspects of politics and government. So, our first program is always the basics, the nuts and bolts of Republican Party, which honestly is something that a lot of people don't know, all the different iterations that go into our party. So that is an opportunity to share with, to have people come in and talk about, from the RNC chair, or I'm sorry, the Republican National Committeeman or woman to, to the local, the local organizations. Then, we public speaking, fundraising, campaigning, ethics, media training. We go to Washington, D.C. and Springfield, where they have an opportunity, to hear from think tanks, lobbyists, meet with our representatives there, and really get a behind the scenes look at how everything really functions and works. And by the end of this 9 months, you walk away with a network you have an idea of where your talents lie and where you think you can best serve our party. So it is, it is an awesome opportunity to meet women, like-minded women from around the state. We do our best to ensure that we have a well-rounded group from around the state to apply. And as I mentioned, just our feedback from the convention was amazing. How, a lot of people didn't either know about it or just didn't understand. So the Lincoln Series sometimes gets confused by the Lincoln Forum or the Lincoln Project, or, sometimes people, mix them up. And, but the Lincoln Series is, we're here, we've been here for 30 years, and we're working to do our best to build the farm team, so to speak, of the Republican Party here in our state. So it is an application process. We will have our application for the 2025 program in August on our website. So there'll be announcements about that for sure. And as I mentioned earlier, we have, Gabby Shanahan, who's running in the House District 97. And so many, we've had over 230 people or women who have graduated from our program. And, one of the most notable ones is Corinne Wood, who was lieutenant governor under George Ryan. So, we have Lincoln Series fellows in all aspects. You probably don't even know some women, unless it just doesn't come up sometimes. And so, they're in Washington, our fellows are in Washington, D.C., all parts of state government, county, local governments. And we even have someone in Missouri who is Anna Hui, who is the they have a title to it, and it's escaping me right now, but basically she does the interior, I'm saying that wrong, that's not the right title, but it's escaping me at the moment. But she is at the top of state government in Missouri. And so so you don't know, the opportunities are endless. As I said, you walk away with a great network, meeting people from all around the state.
Well, one of the things that we've seen is the biggest impediment to getting new people involved in politics, especially females, is that lack of knowledge of how the process works. So one of the things that Lincoln Series does so well is that training, teaching them how it works, helping them build connections, helping them understand how government works, how to run for office. So when they do run, they have that knowledge, they have that groundwork. So Lincoln Series does a really important job, and the role they play in diversifying our party and bringing our party into the 21st century is incredibly powerful for us. So I want to make sure people know your website is lincolnseries.com. They should look you guys up, support you all. I know you've got a fundraiser coming up on June 23rd.
Yes, in Mackinac Valley Vineyard, which is just outside Bloomington. So realize it's not probably the most ideal for people up north, but it is just a wonderful opportunity to come together, celebrate 30 years, meet with alum. And it's at a vineyard, a Sunday afternoon, and, just a nice time to come together and celebrate. And it's our fundraiser, one of our fundraisers this year. And, it takes about $4,000 to $5,000 for each candidate. For each fellow to go through the program. And so any sponsorships or anything anyone can do is always a huge help to us. As fundraising goes, that's part of, we do encourage the fellows to fundraise as well. It's part of the homework, so to speak. So they get firsthand knowledge of how it really is done. So, and so so that is.
So we encourage our viewers, our listeners, look up the Lincoln Series. If you know somebody, a female who wants to be involved in politics, who wants to learn, who you think has a bright future, encourage them to apply for the next cohort that's going to go through the program. If you agree with the idea that we need to get more strong women, female candidates and leaders in our party, support the Lincoln Series. They've got this fundraiser on June 23rd. Even if you can't make it, you could sponsor it. Or maybe you could sponsor one of the fellows for next year. $5,000 could sponsor a fellow to go through the program to support them, so you could contribute that to the program. But whatever you can do, I strongly support the Lincoln Series. I encourage our viewers to do the same. So Katie, I'm glad you're able to give that plug for a very important organization.
Yes, and I want to also clarify that the fellows do not need to raise $5,000. So that is, you know, that is,
you know what, that's the cost, and our viewers can maybe help with that. So I encourage our viewers to help with those costs.
Yes, absolutely. We do ask that they raise $2,000 for each candidate. So that is, that's
cool.
But it's
awesome. Well,
you're getting help along the way. It's not like we just throw you out there. So anyhow, but thank you for the platform. I do appreciate it. And LincolnSeries.com would appreciate everyone taking a look at our website and see what we're about.
I love it. All right, we are over time, so let's close down. As always, we let every single one of our guests give closing thoughts on whatever it is you want to talk about. So Provenzano, floor is yours. Whatever it is you want to close down with. Thanks for being here, and what are your final thoughts?
Final thoughts are, I just want to make an announcement on behalf of the Cook County Republican Party. Next Tuesday night in Orland Park, we're holding a central committee meeting where we will be slating our Cook County clerk candidate. Because of the death of Karen Yarborough, we have recruited a candidate. We've interviewed some candidates, and our individual on the heels of Lincoln Series is a Chicago resident and a newcomer, Michelle Pennington. So Tuesday evening, we'll be slating her as our Republican nominee for Cook County Clerk.
I love it. If you could make sure we've got information on her next week, we'll talk about that race a little bit. That's great.
Fantastic.
Katie, final thoughts from you. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Yes, June 23rd at Mackinac Valley Vineyard is, we're going to celebrate 30 years of mentor and training women to run for office, and hope you'll join us.
Nice. Michael, Chris, I don't know who went first last time, so who wants to kick it off this time? Go ahead. Michael's muted, so Chris, go ahead. So
everybody stop watching White Sox baseball. The last 2 days have made me so ungodly upset. I don't care. I'm not talking about politics right now. This team's got to go. I'm sick of it. How do you have a 5-0 lead in one game, blow it, have a 5-1 lead the next night, and then blow it? This is a travesty. Must be what it feels like to be an Illinois Republican. And now I finally understand all the pain and suffering that goes along with this. It's just like being a White Sox. In conclusion, stop watching White Sox baseball. And if people are still arguing over convention stuff, I don't know, get over it. Clear out the people you want to clear out. I'm sick of that too. I'm sick of the fighting. I'm sick of the White Sox. So everyone have a wonderful weekend, and let's go Brewers, I guess.
Yeah, as one of the biggest White Sox fans in the state, and I know Chris, you'll challenge me for that title. This team does not deserve our support or watching it. So
I gave up on them last year. Yeah.
It's just not a franchise that cares about winning. So then I don't care about giving. By this time of the year, I'd have gone to 5 or 6 games. I have been to 0 at this point. So, Michael, where are you at, man? You're our final word today.
Yeah, I would just say, obviously that this podcast showed it at the beginning. There's a lot of strong opinions on both sides over the convention and what went down there. But obviously, Dean White and Rhonda Belford, they're representing us at the national level, and it's important that we get behind them, offer them support, make sure that they're aware of what's going on in our individual regions. Because if we're going to win statewide, flip some congressional seats, things of that nature, we've got to be all working together and rowing in the same direction. So hopefully we can make that happen.
Nice. Well, I want to say thank you to our loyal viewers The YouTube count is never accurate because I got to tell you, I get so many text messages. Even while the budget fight was happening down in Springfield, I had multiple legislators who were checking in on things, providing information, who listened. We had several Democrats who referenced things they heard on the smoke-filled room down in Springfield. So we've got a lot of viewers throughout the state. Thank you for sticking with us. Our goal is to be better, to get better representation, to elect good conservatives, good Republicans throughout this state. And I'm hoping we're going to be able to make a difference here in November. So thank you for watching. Thank you to Lane Davis, who's back for producing these episodes. I know a lot of work goes into it. We've got some fun episodes coming up these next couple of weeks, so you don't want to miss it. In the meantime, I'll finish my cigar, and thanks for being with us in the smoke-filled room.